One flight, two dead, and a mystery that lives on, into the sky, into the unknown. Hit that subscribe button before we take off, because once we're airborne, there's no coming back down. This is a mystery that still haunts investigators today. The sun was dipping low on the horizon as the small commercial aircraft prepared for takeoff. It wasn't a crowded flight, just a routine regional hop that most passengers thought nothing of. On board were businessmen, parents, and travelers looking forward to an ordinary journey. But by the time the plane was reported missing, only 2 bodies would be recovered, and the rest of the truth would be buried in a fog of secrecy. Air traffic control lost contact mid-route, the signal cutting off without warning. At first, controllers assumed it was a technical glitch, radar interference, perhaps a storm. But within minutes, alarm bells rang. The aircraft had veered dramatically off course, flying low and erratic over remote terrain. A distress call never came. When search teams finally located the crash site, what they saw looked less like an accident and more like something deliberate. Scattered wreckage lay across a desolate stretch of wilderness. 2 victims were found, their bodies badly damaged. But what startled investigators wasn't just the crash. It was the eerie silence from the black box. Instead of panic in the cockpit, there was a void. No mayday, no desperate attempts to recover altitude. Just steady breathing and the sound of engines roaring until the final impact. The captain of the flight, described by colleagues as calm and meticulous, instantly became the focus of suspicion. His career was stable, his record clean. Yet evidence hinted he had locked the co-pilot out of the cockpit in those final moments. The idea was almost unthinkable. Why would a man entrusted with lives steer them toward destruction? Was it suicide? The co-pilot's absence became the most damning clue. According to the data, he had left the flight deck minutes before the fatal dive. When he returned, the door was locked. He had banged on it, tried to override the system, but no one let him back in. Passengers in the final rows likely heard the pounding and confusion as the plane continued its steady fall. It was not mechanical failure. It was control. Cold, unbroken control. The notebook found near the wreckage only fanned the flames. They won't understand until it's too late. The words were splashed across international headlines, fueling theories that ranged from a hidden illness to secretive political motives. Some pointed to historical parallels, other crashes where pilots had been found responsible. Others believed it was staged to look that way, a cover for a larger crime. Investigators pushed deeper into the captain's life. His colleagues described him as polite, measured, but strangely withdrawn in his final months. His neighbors remembered odd late-night walks, muttered phone calls in languages they didn't recognize. His bank records showed no sudden withdrawals, no debts. But there were gaps, transactions that appeared erased. Meanwhile, the families of the victims became restless. Public vigils turned into protests, their grief sharpened into anger. "We want the truth," they shouted outside government offices, holding photographs of loved ones lost in the crash. Rumors spread that the airline was withholding documents. Leaked memos suggested the carrier had ignored early warning signs about the captain's mental health. Still, nothing explained the precision of the descent. Aviation experts testified. No accidental stall lasts that long. No autopilot could hold such a straight dive without human input. "This was intentional," one investigator said flatly. "And that changes everything." Then, week's eye, into the inquiry came a shocking twist. A witness stepped forward, a technician from the airline's maintenance crew. He claimed he had seen the captain arguing with senior officials days before the crash. The subject? A confidential report about flight safety violations. According to the technician, the captain had threatened to expose everything if the airline continued to hide the truth. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Was this a desperate man taking a final, vengeful stand? Or had someone silenced him, turning the flight into a staged suicide to bury secrets too damaging to reveal? The possibility of corporate cover-up turned the investigation into a political minefield. And just when investigators thought they had found a motive, a new piece of evidence emerged. From the charred remains of the cockpit, analysts recovered a digital recorder, different from the official black box, hidden beneath wiring where no one expected it. When they powered it on, the last chilling seconds of the flight played back. A voice, low and firm, filled the room. It wasn't the co-pilot, and it wasn't the captain. It was someone else. The voice in the cockpit. The room was silent as the investigators replayed the hidden recorder. The voice was steady, commanding, yet it didn't match the captain or the co-pilot. Forensic audio analysis confirmed it. A third presence had been in the cockpit. But how? The flight manifest listed only passengers and crew. No unknown names, no missing seat. Whoever that voice belonged to, they weren't supposed to be there. At first, officials dismissed it as interference, a radio overlap. But then came the sound that froze everyone listening. The unmistakable hiss of the cockpit door being secured from the inside. This was no accident, no phantom signal. Someone else had been there, controlling the final minutes of the flight. The revelation triggered chaos. Media outlets erupted with headlines about stowaways and hijackers. Families demanded to know why the airline hadn't caught the intruder before boarding. Government spokespeople scrambled to assure the public this was an isolated event. Yet the investigation only grew darker. Surveillance footage from the airport that day was missing a crucial 10 minutes, exactly the window when passengers boarded the aircraft. Whistleblowers inside the airline claimed that security protocols had been quietly lowered to save costs, allowing unchecked staff access to restricted zones. Could someone have slipped on board dressed as crew? It was a terrifying possibility. If true, it meant the tragedy wasn't a pilot's suicide. It was a calculated murder carried out under everyone's noses. The co-pilot's final attempts to break into the cockpit suddenly made sense. He hadn't been locked out by his captain. He had been locked out by a stranger who, to this day, has never been identified. Officials tried to close the case, labeling it pilot responsibility. But leaked documents showed investigators had never conclusively matched the voice to the captain. The hidden recorder proved another truth. There had been a cover-up. Whether to protect the airline, shield international security failures, or bury political ties, no one could say. For the families, the official explanation was hollow. 2 lives gone, countless more scarred, and a mystery sealed in bureaucracy. Vigils still burn in their names, reminders of a flight that should have landed safely, but instead became a riddle that governments preferred to forget. Today, 1 flight too dead remains a phrase whispered with unease in aviation circles. Not because of the crash itself, but because of the unanswered question that lingers in every report, every witness statement, every interview with grieving relatives. Who was the third voice in the cockpit? And perhaps more chilling, could they still be out there, waiting to board another flight? If you thought this I was haunting, you're not ready for what's next. Hit subscribe, because the next story dives even deeper into the crimes hidden in plain sight.